Is this one of the most common challenges that marriages face, or are there many?
Well, I think there are many, but this one particular underlies so many of the challenges. For our listeners as well, the idea of drift, I always like to think of, when I was a kid, going to the beach for summer holidays. We didn't live close to the beach, so they would be our summer holidays. Our parents would always tell us to swim in between the flags, So that you have those flags there and the lifeguards out at the beach, and it helps keep everyone safe. But if you don't pay attention to those flags, before you know it, you're actually outside of that sort of safe zone. And, that's what I would refer to, as a very visible demonstration of drift. Unless you're actively focusing on staying in that safe zone, the natural tendency for, swimming in the ocean would be that you will drift away from your target, away from your goal, away from, in the context of marriage, your goal of oneness. So, we usually kick off our Family Life Weekend to Remember with a session talking about marriage myths, but then also highlighting this idea that you're either moving towards oneness in your relationship or you're drifting towards isolation. There's sort of no standstill.
So maybe we could look at some things we can do to make sure that we keep ourselves, I'll say the safe zone, but the optimum zone in terms of our marriages, to make sure that we are heading in the same direction, but also perhaps, Wynand, some red flags that might be showing us that we are sort of heading outside those areas and perhaps opening ourselves up to situations that we don't necessarily want to find ourselves in.
Yeah, look, I'd always say think about those things you enjoyed, at first, and ask yourself, are you still experiencing joy in your relationship? Because if not, it may be that you've lost focus of, as Christians, if we think about the letter, the message to the church in the book of Revelation, it talks about, one thing I have against you, you've lost your first love. And so, drifting away from your first love isn't uncommon by any stretch of the imagination. So, I mean, in your marriage, if there's low levels of joy in your marriage, if there's more frustration with your partner and, the little things or, even the big things that, tend to take up all the space between you and the joy have sort of been taken out of your relationship, that's a big red flag. Have you just become housemates, which often happens? And look, it's not a shame if you realize that, or if you even recognize that we're in a stage in our lives and a journey where life is full. Working in ministry, full-time ministry, having a toddler and a newborn, or not a newborn, but a baby in the house is quite full on. And, there are those moments where we're just like, where's the joy? Where's that joy we initially had when we first connected? And then we need to be exceptionally intentional about rekindling that romance, rekindling the gratitude, slowing down, pausing to focus on us, on our relationship, because the demands of life tend to sort of, take over and, cause us to drift if we're not being intentional about moving towards oneness.
Just going back to your use of symbolism with the idea of swimming between the flags, what would you say in your relationship these particular flags are?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe a question that I don't have an answer to right now, because metaphors help us understand life and understand our situations. I would say the goal of marriage and marriage oneness is experiencing love, experiencing connection, experiencing intimacy. So, intimacy is all about how open and vulnerable we can be with one another. I would say those are the goalposts for any marriage. And if you want to say, what are the flags that you want to swim between? It's the flags of, do we have intimacy? Are we open with one another? Do we talk about the things that are on our hearts, or do we just have this relationship where we negotiate on everything? Because ultimately, marriage is all about oneness. It's all about this journey of being known, to know someone and to be known. So I'd say intimacy is the flags you want to stay in between. How open and vulnerable are you when you talk, and in the way you talk and connect with one another?